Welcome to episode 6 of the Stitching Geek podcast. My name is Mallory, aka the Stitching Geek, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm coming to you from outside of Portland, Oregon, and in today's episode we have some works in progress, a trip to the frog pond, and more. So let's get right to the stitching segment. As is custom, there aren't any finished objects today. Everything I'm working on is pretty big in scope, so I'm just kind of plugging away. So let's move right into the works in progress. The first project today is everyone's favorite ongoing sweater project, the Harvest Cardigan by Tin Can Knits. Kind of get it in the light here. Some progress has been made, actually. Quite a bit of progress. If we look at the stitch marker here, we can see I've knit probably 4 or 5 rows on it. It's been going really well. I'm knitting this out of Knit Picks' Wool of the Andes worsted in the Baltic Heather colorway. It's 100% Peruvian Highland wool. It's knitting up beautifully. I think I've said that every time I've talked about this sweater. Last time we chatted, I was worried about my stitch count. I've been having trouble being sure that I've been entering the data into Knit Companion as I go. And I'm pretty sure I had missed a few increases here and there. So my original plan was to knit until I got to what I thought was the right amount of rows, count the stitches, and then from there make adjustments, increase or decrease with a couple extra rows. What I did though, and I thought about it in time, is that I kind of stopped where I was and counted all of my stitches and was able to figure out how many more I needed in order to get to the right stitch count at the end. So rather than have, a guessing game, I knew where I was, I knew where I needed to be, and I made a plan to get there. One of the really cool things about this pattern, and I think a lot of Tin Can Knits' patterns, is that they have really, really detailed stitch counts of where you're supposed to be. So not only was there a stitch count for the total amount of stitches my sweater was supposed to have, there was a stitch count for each of the fronts, each of the sleeves, and the back of the sweater. So that allowed me to go, where exactly am I missing increases and where do I need to increase more? Instead of just going, okay, I don't want to give secret sauce away or anything, so let's just make up some numbers here. I'm at 150 stitches, I need to be at 155. I guess I'll just randomly put those extra 5 stitches somewhere. No, this way I was able to go, okay, the first front is supposed to have 68 stitches, and I'm at 64, so I need to increase 4 more, and that kind of thing. So by having those very detailed instructions and very detailed stitch counts, I was able to get where I needed to go without sacrificing quality. Like, the increases are where they're supposed to be, if that makes sense. And that's where I am with the Harvest Cardigan. I am on the next section now. Like, I'm done with the increases, or I'm done with the ongoing increases. I think I have one more set of increases I need to do. And then I'll be able to separate the sleeves, which I know I have claimed I was going to get to separating the sleeves pretty much for the last 2 or 3 episodes. But this time I'm 90% sure I'll be able to get to it. So look out for that, actual continued progress. So the next work in progress is the Dudester Scarf by Yana Pahota. I made a little bit of progress, not a ton. I've got a couple rows where I left off on the stitch marker there. So not a whole lot to say about it. It's still going well. It's a simple project that I don't have to pay a lot of attention to, which is nice when I just kind of want to watch TV or I'm tired and I just kind of want to knit without thinking. But it's, again, still enough of a pattern to make it interesting. I've made progress, but not 2 feet worth, 2 feet worth of progress. So it'll still be on the go for a while. And that is all I have for works in progress this week. But I do have a new segment called In the Frog Pond. So a few episodes ago, I talked about how I was swatching for the Dream Fingerless Mittens by Marsha Healy. I was swatching that out of Manos del Uruguay in the Candobi colorway. And honestly, I got frustrated with the swatch. I've talked about it a couple of times that when I try to swatch in the round and I do the method where you kind of just move the knitting down the needle and keep going so you have that extra wiggly bits, like worms on the back. Is probably the grossest way I could describe that. It just really makes it not fun to work on. It's frustrating, and I'm never sure if I leave enough yarn or too much yarn, and I don't like how it feels, and I don't love it. It just it makes everything feel messy, and so I get frustrated. So I ripped it out partly because I was annoyed, and partly because I'm not really in a fingering weight mood right now. Sock yarn isn't really my cup of tea at the moment. I'm looking for more instant gratification, and worsted weight things seem to be doing that for me at the moment. I know I'll go back to sock yarn, but right now I'm just in a worsted place. And yeah, like I said, I want to figure out a better way to swatch in the round or get over my annoyance with it. I'm wondering if part of it too is that the yarn I had has been caked up and swatched for several things at this point, so the yarn itself is very crinkly, up until the point where it's fresh yarn again. So like I've knit and ripped, and now it basically looks like ramen noodles, and I just don't love it. I don't love the way it feels, so maybe I just need a different skein of yarn. Maybe I need to get over myself. It's hard to tell. I know I've been watching some videos on YouTube of people swatching in the round to see if there's a different suggestion than this one, other than just knitting a straight up tube. And everybody kind of does it the same way. I know some people cut the yarn in the back at the end so that way it lays flatter, which I'm considering. But the problem there is that I get anxious because what if I need that extra yardage at the end to finish the project? I probably won't. These are little projects. Like I don't make sweaters very often like I am right now. And when I do, I buy extra yarn. It's just this like weird niggling feeling in the back of my head of like, but what if you need it and you've cut it? It's like, there's more yarn. Like, oh well, figure it out. If I screw it up, oh well, like it's yarn, it rips out, but I just got to get over it. And that's the only thing I sent to the frog pond this week. So let's move on to On the Horizon. It's getting to be that time of year in the Northern Hemisphere where I'm not really up to big wool projects, which, so it's great that I have a huge sweater on the needles, but whatever. I've been thinking about other fibery things I can do as we go into spring and summer, as things get warmer and I'm just not like wanting to hold yarn in my sweaty, gross hands. So I've been thinking about spinning again. So I have a shacked ladybug that I've had for several years, and I'm just kind of getting the urge to clean it up, get some oil on there, take off anything I have on the bobbins and start fresh. Cause I have a decent spinning fiber stash. I just have never really worked a lot with it because starts and fits is how I do my spinning. So part of the inspiration for the spinning has been watching the Sweet Georgia YouTube channel. Sweet Georgia is a yarn company. I'm sure most of you know it at this point. The owner/founder, her name is Felicia, and she does like a weekly podcast kind of thing on YouTube called Taking Back Fridays. And she is just a super engaging person in general. I took a craftsy class that she had put out years ago when I first started spinning. And that was about spinning with color, like how to make the colors do what you want when you have like a gradient fiber or whatever, like multicolored fiber. And she's just very soothing to listen to and like sounds very confident and very knowledgeable. And like anything she talks about makes me want to try that thing because she makes it sound so appealing. Like she's got a great presence for essentially ASMR, like knitting ASMR. And they're short little episodes. They're like 15 minutes. But anytime she talks about something, I basically want to try it. Like she's got a huge loom and I'm like, oh, well, that looks fun and relaxing. She has like her very fancy spinning wheels. I'm like, oh, I should get back into spinning. So it's a very enably kind of thing. So yeah, if you haven't checked out the Sweet Georgia channel, I super highly recommend it. Like a lot of good tips on there and a lot of inspiration. It's a very inspiring channel. She's a very inspiring person. And speaking of inspiring, like watching her do her weaving has made me also want to get back to my loom. I still have a houndstooth project on there that is literally, it's giving me the evil eye as I'm talking to you guys. It's right behind the camera. I'm so close to being done with it and I just haven't just taken the time to finish it. And I think that would also be a pretty good warmer weather fiber related task because it's off of me. I have the stand, so it's like off of my lap, it's off of my hands. It's just back and forth. So the sweater, when I'm knitting it, is like a blanket on me sometimes. It's just like all over me and all that kind of stuff. I know most people would knit socks. It's not that I dislike knitting socks. The bug hasn't hit me the way it hits other people. I think my thing is more hats. For like, I'm going to wear a hat more often than I'm going to wear wool socks because I run warm, so a hat makes more sense. Anyway, all that to say that as we progress into the summer here in the Northern Hemisphere, you'll likely be seeing a little bit more of non-knitting fiber-related tasks. And now acquisitions. This episode's acquisition is a little bit more fiber adjacent. So lately I have been using tote bags for my projects more than my traditional like drawstring bags, mostly because my projects are now kind of too big for the traditional drawstring bag. For example, I have this really nice tote from Erin Lane Bags that I have put my sweater in. It's a little wintry with the penguins, but I really like it. And it's big enough to hold multiple skeins of yarn and the sweater. Even a sweater is big enough for me. So I was cruising around Etsy to look for some more tote bags, and nothing was really calling to me. And then I realized, hold on a second. I have a website. I have a logo designed by my amazing friend Nate. Why don't I get myself a tote bag with this amazing logo on it? So that's what I did. And look at it. Look at it. It's amazing. And I am absolutely in love with it. The best part, like, it's sturdy, it's well constructed, but the very best part is that the logo itself is actually printed on the tote bag. It's not just ironed on like something you would do at home. No shade to those iron-on transfers, like the vinyl stuff you can do from a cutting machine. I have a couple t-shirts that have those, and the iron-on part tends to kind of peel off after a while, especially if you wash it. But this is like fully printed on, which means it's not going anywhere. It may fade, but it's not going to just like rip off halfway through. And I love it. The only thing I would have changed now that I have it is putting my website on the bag itself. So that way, you know, get some marketing out there, get some promotions. I may have already adjusted the design in order to order myself another one sometime in the future. I don't need it right now, but someday. And that wraps up the acquisition section as well as the stitching section for this week. So let's move on to the geek section. On the geeky side of things this week, I have been playing a lot of video games. The first one I've been binging, I guess, if that you can really use that term when it comes to video games, is this game called Stellaris. My partner got me into this game. It's kind of a Sid Meier's Civilizations, but set in space. So when you start out, you pick a race, like a spacefaring race. You can have humanoids, there's like bird people, there's mollusk type creatures, like you can be a mushroom creature. It's really cool. You can also kind of create your own depending on what like DLC you have and things like that. And then you start exploring the galaxy. You can colonize worlds, meet other spacefaring civilizations. You can claim systems for your empire. You can, form alliances. You can broker deals. You can start a galaxy-wide senate. There's like spy missions that you can send people on. There's a lot of content in this game, and it's ginormous. I'm sure there's a million more things you can do that I just don't know about yet because the game is so big and like kind of overwhelming when you first start. And there's a ton of DLC out there that I haven't even purchased or touched yet. Like, not only do they have like actual expansion packs, like with like new game mechanics, they also have a ton of DLC that is like new races that you can do. And you can like new races that you can be. I generally liken it to like, I used to play a lot of The Sims and I still do sometimes. But like with The Sims, you can get like your expansion packs, which is like The Sims Pets or Sims University or whatever. And you can also get the packs that are just new clothes or new items for your house. It feels very much like that, and it's very cool. So this game is published by Paradox Interactive. They are most well known for, I think, the Crusader Kings series, which is a notoriously hard game to get into. I know my partner has tried, and it's almost impenetrable, Crusader Kings. It sounds really cool and like a really fun game. Once you know how to play it, I just can't. I'm scared to try to figure it out, honestly. But I found that Stellaris isn't as impenetrable. There's a learning curve for sure, but it doesn't feel impossible. I haven't gotten to endgame stuff yet, but my partner just did the other day, in that a murderous species of alien from another dimension crossed into their dimension and just started destroying and taking over everything like a plague. It was intense looking, and it also seemed really super frustrating. Like, I would have been really mad had I been playing that game for as many hours as my partner had been, and all of a sudden all my hard work was gone. But que sera, right? Like, stuff happens. So after a few days of playing Stellaris pretty much nonstop, I also kind of got a bug to play Don't Starve, which Don't Starve is a game that kind of is what it says on the tin. You get dropped into a world and you try not to starve, but also not die. There's things that'll kill you. I've had this game forever. It feels like years and years. They update it pretty regularly, and it's still really fun to play and has like a really cool art style. It's also super duper easy to die, and that can be kind of frustrating because like not only do you have to maintain your hunger, hence don't starve, you also have to maintain your health and your sanity, and that can kind of cause trouble because there are like bees that sting you, and there's creatures that make you go a little bit crazy, and you start to lose sanity at night, and it can be a lot to manage at first. And sometimes the game almost feels spiteful. It's like, okay, this horrible thing happened. Oh, and now my base is on fire. It's just like, sometimes you can't win for losing. So what I usually do is I'll go in and I'll make some changes to the world that I'm creating to be a little more friendly, I guess. Things like more food resources and less monsters. Generally with these kinds of survival games, my goal isn't to fight monsters and win. My goal is to literally to survive. Like, I want to build a little base from nothing and kind of just make things go. Like, I do the same thing in Minecraft. I do the same thing in there's a game called The Longest Dark. There's a game called The Forest where there's like cannibals on there that are like attacking you, but you can turn on vegan mode, which basically means it's just you on this island and no enemies. No super hard enemies. And Don't Starve does have a story from what I understand. I've just never really progressed on it because I've been busy building little farms and stuff like that. And then finally, I also got the urge to play some time management games, which, they're super casual and it's just kind of something to decompress a little bit at the end of the day, despite the stress of the game itself for managing your time and everything. I like it because it's really low stakes. Like, you just redo the level if there's a problem. The one I've been playing, I resubscribed to this service called Game House, which I will probably cancel because I don't need it every month all the time. But there's a series called Delicious. I think it's Delicious Emily, which sounds unfortunate. But it's essentially you have a little restaurant and you have to serve customers and cash them out and do that kind of stuff. And it's very similar to Diner Dash if you've ever played that. And I like it. It's just it's very much the same game over and over again, but it's like, oh, okay, let's build a little restaurant and get a bunch of money and move on to the next better restaurant. And I really like it. It's a lot of fun. And it's an easy game to kind of pick up for an hour before you go to bed and then walk away. It's engaging, but it's not like I have to keep playing this till 2 a.m. engaging. And that's it for episode 6. Thank you so much for making it this far. There are links to everything I've talked about down below in the description box. Or you can head over to stitchinggeek.com and I have show notes over there. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.